All right, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening, y'all? It's me coming back at you again with another live stream vid. Now, as things cannot get any worse for the zone at this point, as most of us had predicted was going to be the next step when it came to the dire relationship between Canelo Alvarez and the zone. Uh, about less than 24 hours, it's been reported that Canelo Alvarez has went and filed a litigation suit against Gold, not only with his own, but also with his current promoter, Golden Boy Promotions. That according to the suit, which we was able to obtain one draft of like the first page of the 29-page lawsuit, or 24 to 29 pages, whatever the case may be, it specifies that Canelo is not rendering, he is bringing on this judgment, this litigation judgment, due to the fact that he was deceived, and the fact that there was a breach of contract not only with the zone, but also with Golden Boy as well, whereas he is not being paid his guaranteed amount of dollars per fight as he was promised it would be paid. Okay. Now, what's kind of not saying complex, what's kind of a bit of a triangle theory here is that the part of the reason why this whole contract was drafted between the zone and Canelo was not directly with Canelo and the zone. It was an attachment contract. It was more like a subsidiary contract where Canelo's name was attached to a primary contract, which was Golden Boy with the zone. And according to the agreement that we all know, is that in order to acquire Canelo Alvarez services, Golden Boy, which is through Oscar De La Hoya and their legal representatives, has stipulated to the zone big wigs, which is through John Skipper at the time, is that if you want Canelo services, you will have to promise us dates, and you have to fund our cards as well, which is for the other Golden Boy fighters like Ryan Garcia, who's an upcoming fighter, upcoming star, as you want to say. Then you have Virgil Ortiz, who's a potentially upcoming star too in the welterweight division, and you also have Seneda Estrada, super bad, who fights at the flyweight division for the in the women's division, whatnot. Okay, amongst others, and Franchise Cruz, who's the super middleweight champion over there as well. So the case may be that was part of the agreement. Now, Canelo was signed onto the deal that he was going to get 10, 11 fights worth $365 million. That's, of course, for 5 years. Now, each fight he was guaranteed $35 million. Now, as of recent, due to the COVID situation, due to the pandemic, which kind of screwed a lot of organizations, particularly the Zone. Um, the Zone had requested that Canelo's next fight will not be paid. He will not be paid a guarantee amount of $35 million, as it was initially stated in his contract, as we all, according to several sources. Now, Canelo and of course and Golden Boy were pretty upset about that because this is not what they agreed to with the zone. Now, the zone, according to the sources who are familiar with the situation, their representatives or their legal counsel, I think maybe their general counsel, whoever the case may be, their representatives are saying that Canelo and Golden Boy have not lived up to their expectations or their promises as they agreed upon the agreements that they had drafted, that they executed with their signatures a while back. What's up, Tommy? Is that they have not delivered the results that they were looking for. Okay. Now, as far as Canelo Alvarez is concerned, his job was to bring the traditional pay-per-view crowds over to the zone and pay for a yearly subscription to the app or pay a month-to-month services, which didn't turn out to be the case. And as I predicted a couple years ago, and people call me crazy, call me the zone hater, only because Eddie Hearn was the lead promoter of that platform. What's up, Intangible? Um, is that I said it best is that first of all, Canelo Alvarez is pay-per-view star number one. Number two, his biggest fan base live in rural America, all right, and rural Mexico, and rural parts of Mexico. In those areas, broadband is not accessible. So that's a huge mistake on his part because the zone is not going to gain viewership by alienating rural America. Now, that's not to their fault, to their own, because broadband is not available. But the fact is that this is something that should have thought through. And the fact is that you cannot bank on subscribers to pay back the money to recoup the money that you're investing to a guy like Canelo Alvarez, who's a very expensive fighter. Okay, Now, the fact is this is that subscribers itself, and I hate to repeat myself, subscribers itself cannot cannot only pay for the fighter's purses, but it cannot also pay for your overheads, which is your budget, and also your other operational costs. That's seemingly that's very, very nearly impossible to do. And I've said this from the beginning. Okay, I've said a long time ago. Now, I agree that the zone should come into the U.S. market because we need competition. We need to have choices of who we want to see fight. Okay, and we can all assess who makes the best. We can all decide who makes the better matchup making between the networks, between Showtime, between ESPN, between Fox, and between the zone. Okay, in this case. Now, what I've said a long time ago is that okay, say that Canelo did his fight. Let's say let's just hypothetically say that he did one fight. He fought someone like Sergey Kovalev, for example. Okay, we know that fight didn't do well as far as viewership, as far as gaining new subscribers. We know that. But let's say hypothetically it did gain 3 million new subscribers, right, for that fight alone, right? Let's say it did. But the question is that how are they going to able to retain those subscribers? Because you have to understand those subscribers that Canelo, as the face that he is, were only going to pay only once to watch that fight between him and Kovalev. They're not going to pay a monthly subscription or an annual subscription at that. They're not going to do that. Okay, they're going to pay for his fights on a fight by fight basis. In this case, for the zone, let's say at that point before they were $19.99, they were $9.99, and then 3 months later they raised their subscription fee up to $20, which I felt that was a red flag, and I'll get to that in a little bit in a minute. The fact is that they are not going to pay a yearly subscription. I'm talking about these fans who are loyal to Canelo. They're not going to pay a yearly subscription or a monthly subscription. Just based off the fact that Canelo only fights twice a year. And in fact, in this case, he hasn't fought in the whole year. So why are they paying for the service if there are any monthly subscribers who are very faithful to Canelo and his fights? That's nearly impossible to recoup that kind of money. And as I said a long time ago, what the zone should have done is that they should have launched a pay-per-view product, which I don't know if that's going to happen now, big guess, given the fact that they're in a litigation battle with Canelo Alvarez, which could suck them dry. Because I can't see how they can drag this out in court for so many years. I just don't think they can afford to do that. Why I say that is because right now the zone is bleeding cash. Yesterday, along with the news that Canelo Alvarez was bringing a suit towards them, it was reported that the zone had to lay off their workforce, a good significant amount of their workforce, particularly here in the United States and Brazil. They had to lay them off. Okay, and now they're going to focus their operations elsewhere globally. So that to me is an indication that they're going to probably slowly pull out of the United States market. Or I could be wrong. I've been proven wrong before. If they're not going to do that, then they need to start making significant changes, and they need to introduce a pay-per-view platform. I'm just going to be honest. They have to do it if they're going to survive here. They have to do it, and they should have done this a long time ago. The way they should have laid this out, they should have roadmapped this as follows. To introduce a pay-per-view platform that's very affordable, where a consumer like myself in the United States, excuse me, are not really subjected to paying $75 a month to watch a pay-per-view fight, which we're all accustomed to here, right? Sometimes it can be $90 depending on the fight. All right, in some cases. Now, what the zone should have done is said, okay, if you're a non-subscriber for a premier fight like Canelo Alvarez, when he fights a guy like Sergey Kovalev or Danny Jacobs or even Gennady Golovkin or Manny Pacquiao, I'm just throwing some names out there. If you want to watch their fight as a non-subscriber, you have to pay $50 to watch their fight. Cool. All right. If you're a monthly subscriber, you pay $10 a month. You pay not $10 a month. You pay $10 additional to watch that fight on premium fight. Okay. Or $5, whatever the case may be. But if you're a yearly subscriber, you don't pay anything additional to watch a premium fight. That's something they should have done. And the reason why this model would have worked that I suggested is because that would drove more yearly subscribers, more people to the yearly subscriptions rather than pay a fight by fight basis in that situation. What the zone didn't, that's what the zone made a huge mistake is they only offered a low subscription monthly fee. And that's the problem there because, again, as I stated, Canelo fans aren't going to take advantage of that. They're going to only pay $10 to watch his fight, and that's it. At the time when it was $9.99, let's say he only fought twice a year. They're only paying $20 a year just to watch the man fight. That's it. They don't care about any other fight but Canelo Alvarez. Ryan Garcia is one thing, but Ryan Garcia is not that type of star. He's not there yet. He's not on the level of Canelo Alvarez. He's not quite there yet. So the zone. Let me get to the comments here. Tommy says, "Is this the end of the kitchen utensils in the zone?" And the Box Life says that Canelo is going to sink the zone. You know what? I will say this, Box Life. I think for him to bring this litigation, to bring this lawsuit forward, I think he had him and his lawyers that he hired, a law firm that he hired at El Segundo, which is not too far from me, El Segundo, California law firm. I forgot the name of the law firm, but I think they were able to obtain a copy of those contracts and they were able to review it line by line. And they cannot find any indication in that contract that the zone had any right to use discretionary power, I should say, to decrease his purse. I think they couldn't find no language in there that he agreed to that. So that's why they're bringing this lawsuit forward. All right. And number two, the zone has not done a very good job of outlining who is a premier opponent for Canelo Alvarez. Now they coming out saying that Oscar, according to certain sources, yesterday after the lawsuit was brought forward, which was reported, it was also stated by one source, I think Mike Coppinger, or actually no, Dan Raphael, who said, according to his sources, the insiders believe that premier opponents should be, get this, ready? Get this. The premier opponents that the zone considered for Canelo Alvarez is not only Gennady Golovkin, who, by the way, which people got this totally misunderstood. Canelo Alvarez did not refuse the Gennady Golovkin fight. He did not refuse the trilogy fight. All right, let's not get that twisted. He agreed to take that fight. The problem is that Gennady Golovkin is the one who turned it down. He's the one who went out and said that I'm going to go ahead and take a voluntary defense, which we thought was going to be a mandatory in Uramenta. Okay, the IBF had to come out a few days ago and state, or maybe a week ago, and state that they never ordered that fight. It was Gennady Golovkin who requested a voluntary defense after his fight with Sergey Deverchenko. All right, so let's get that straight. It was Golovkin who turned down the fight. It was Caleb Plant who turned down the fight twice against Canelo Alvarez. Billy Joe Saunders turned down the fight. Callum Smith turned down the fight. Yes, they had their reasons because of the time of preparation for the fight. They felt that was feasible enough that they wanted more in compensation because of that. I get their stance, but the point is that they all turned down the fight. And what's Canelo supposed to do? Okay, yes, Avi Yildirim was not the ideal opponent. I get that, but all these premier opponents or these suitable opponents that we all feel are very worthy fighters for Canelo to take on, they all turned it down. Demetrius Andre, I don't know. Has Canelo approached that fight? No, I don't think he has. However, Demetrius Andre came out and said that he refused to fight Canelo. He won't do it unless there's a gate. That's what Demetrius Andre say. So speaking of Demetrius Andre, I wish he just shut the fuck up and stop talking and just go and fight somebody. And I like Demetrius Andre, but for God's sakes, man, this man has been talking so much fucking shit that he can't even cash. All right. I mean, shout out to the brother, Rampage Jackson. All right, but the fact is this though, Andrade need to do something, man. I don't want to hear him talk no more. Do something and fight somebody. Go and make an effort to make the fight instead of talking, bro. Because there's no signs of your team going out and reaching out to other teams to make fights. Instead of turning them down and talking shit about other fighters, you go out and try to make the fight. I want to see some action from Demetrius Andre. That's all I got to say about that. But anyhow, back to my initial point. Damn, I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, going back to the contract. Going back to reviewing the contract. So the premier opponents, yeah, not the contract. The premier opponents that the zone had deemed was not only Gennady Golovkin, they also deemed Jorge Masvidal and Khabib Nurmagomedov. I can't even pronounce his last name. You know, Khabib, who fought Conor McGregor. You know, in a very, very competitive fight. At UFC. What number was that? I forgot. But anyways, and Oscar De La Hoya. Those are the premier opponents that the zone see fit for Canelo Alvarez. Now, why is this laughable to me? Because Oscar De La Hoya, yes, he recently announced a few days ago he's coming out of retirement, but Oscar De La Hoya hasn't fought in 11 years. In his last fight, he was destroyed by Manny Pacquiao. He got beat up. That's the worst I've seen Oscar De La Hoya take a beating. That's the worst I ever seen him in a fight. He got beat down systematically against a little guy, a flyweight in Manny Pacquiao. He got beat down. That was his last fight. Okay. And they in the zone consider him as a premier opponent for Canelo Alvarez. Now, let's say hypothetically that matchup does get made. All right. And that could sell because there's a bitter rivalry there between Canelo and Oscar De La Hoya. Let's not get it twisted because the relationship between the both of them is is an dumpster fire at this point. It's in turmoil. All right. Now Oscar De La Hoya will get beat down in that fight. I think he'll probably get beat down worse in the Canelo fight, and then the Manny Pacquiao fight, if they decide to go that direction, make that fight. Okay. Now, to be fair, if they were to make that fight, that could probably save the zone financially. It probably could. It probably could. That's only if Canelo agrees to it. But from the looks of it, don't count on that fight happening anytime soon because this thing could drag out for at least a couple years based off what's happening here. All right. And now, Khabib and Jorge Masvidal. These are two UFC fighters, premier UFC fighters, very popular fighters at that. Okay. Now, I can see why the zone would consider these guys premier opponents for Canelo Alvarez because they're trying to bank on a crossover fight. They saw they seen the huge financial success between Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather, how much revenue and interest that pulled. So they're hoping that they could get another crossover fight between, well, arguably boxing's biggest star against one of the UFC's biggest stars, either Jorge Masvidal, who got his ass kicked and beat down systematically by Kamaru Usman, by the way. All right, and Khabib, damn, I can't even pronounce his last name, Nurmagomedov, whatever. But anyhow, Khabib. All right, so um, look, back to the whole meat of the argument here. If you want my prediction, I will say this. I don't think the zone has they don't have a chance of winning this lawsuit if they want to drag this thing out. If they think they can win it, it's going to cost them more financially, and I don't think they can afford to take this thing to court. And I don't think they can afford to drag this thing out, let this process play out. I just don't think they can. And the reason why I say that is because they're seeking to procure additional funding from investors. Now, this is a bad look for the zone at this point. That the point they're getting sued for this amount of money is because when investors look at this and say, "Wait a minute, you guys are treating your star fighter like shit, and yet you expect us to pour money into your company. You spent your money and you spent your capital recklessly. So why should we trust you and lend you another $1 billion in funding? Why should we do that?" So if I'm a potential investor, and I look at that, and I'd be very, very cautious about that. And I would like to see a balance sheet if they can present one. That's what I like to see if I'm a future investor. So um, I think that the outcome is that Canelo is going to get what he wants. There's going to be a settlement. I don't think he's going to get the full $280 million that he's seeking in punitive damages, as he outlined in the docket of the lawsuit. I will say though they're going to come to terms. They're going to come out with a settlement here, and they're going to just release Canelo out of his contract. I think that's what's going to happen. And as far as Golden Boy, I don't know how that situation is going to turn out, but I think he's going to be released out of his Golden Boy contract. But what I mean is, as far as Golden Boy with the zone, I don't know what's going on with that situation. That's a separate situation. Golden Boy is going to have to handle on their own because that's a separate contract right there that they got to deal with directly with the zone. Which, by the way, they're not dealing directly with John Skipper anymore. He's been relieved from the negotiation process between himself and Golden Boy. Golden Boy is dealing directly with Len Bavlaknik, who's the billionaire founder and owner of the zone. And not do him directly, but his representatives, his lawyers. So just to clarify that. So I think that's what the outcome's going to be. It's a sad, fucked up situation. Again, a lot of people out there who criticize me. And yes, I'm going to go in on this a little bit too. I remember 2 years ago, a lot of people said that I was being foolish enough to say that this whole model of the zone is not going to work out. I guess I've been proven right because I can understand logistics and I understand common sense in business 101. You cannot pay out these purses, which are very, very lucrative, I'll admit, But you're overpaying fighters like Canelo Alvarez. You're overpaying fighters like Gennady Golovkin. You're overpaying fighters like Tevin Farmer. Let's be real. You're overpaying fighters like Mikey Garcia, who, by the way, did not even sign a multi-fight deal. He got a one-fight deal for $7 million to fight a fucking Jesse Vargas, and he never signed a multi-fight deal after that with his own. What kind of bullshit reckless spending? Who the hell authorized that type of deal? That's what I like to know. Okay, and also see too, and let me also add too, is that Eddie Hearn had a 2-year option on that $1 billion funding venture that he obtained from the Zone when they first launched in 2 years ago. Now, if I'm Hearn, and I know the Zone's going to look at that option, and say, you know what, Eddie, let's sit down and talk. We would like to go ahead and extend our relationship with you. If I'm Eddie Hearn, I'm looking at this, say, you know what, this is a sinking ship, guys. I don't think I should be able to. I don't want to continue our relationship. No disrespect. This is business. I think what Eddie Hearn is going to do is that he should shop for another network. I think Showtime would be best. Why? Because there's no exclusivity over there with them. And besides, Eddie Hearns had a previous relationship with Showtime when he had signed Anthony Joshua there, and I think Carl Frampton was signed to the Showtime too at one time when Eddie Hearn was once promoting him. But other than that, yes, Steven Espinoza and Eddie Hearn had beef over recent years over the Deontay Wilder and AJ situation. But who's to say that Eddie Hearn won't go back to Showtime and do business with Steven Espinoza again? And I'm sure Steven Espinoza is a very forgiving guy. He will do business with Eddie. He might bring AJ back over to Showtime. And speaking of AJ, his fight hasn't been scheduled yet. And the fact is, don't be surprised that the Zone will not acquire rights to that fight. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. Let me see. Tommy says in the UK, you only need to pay pay-per-view for on Sky TV. You don't have to have a subscription to Sky Sports, just Sky. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. What's up, Smoke? Smoke says that it's Al Heyman's job to save the Zone from himself for the good for the fans. This is his failure. This failure is his, not theirs. Well, if Al wants to save the app, if he wants to go ahead and get a group of investors together to buy the app, acquire from Lynn Pavachnik, then by all means go ahead. But why would he want to do that for? Just to get out of so that way he can run it. That way he don't have to pay for the well, just to think about it, that may not be a bad idea. So that way he doesn't have to pay rights to or pay pay airtime space, which I think he's doing right now for. Or actually, no, he's not doing that anymore. He did that initially when he launched the PBC, but you don't have to pay certain rights to TV networks like Fox, Showtime, and yeah, that's about it. Fox and Showtime. So other than that, well, I mean, if Al wants to consider that, go ahead. But I predict that Al Heyman is working behind the scenes to lure Canelo Alvarez and drag him away from the Zone after this whole litigation thing settles. I think that's what's going to happen, and I also predict that this thing is going to be dragged out just as long as Andre Ward's situation with Dan Goosen, just like Mikey Garcia's situation with the Top Rank, and also which people don't talk about is the situation with Tim Witherspoon with Don King, and people don't forget that situation was dragged out for many years. Yes, I think I recall I heard from the grapevine that Tim Witherspoon, let me check this, if my memory serves me correctly, I think his litigation, his dispute with Don King lasted for what, how many years? I think 7 years, I think. I could be wrong. Um, let's see. Well, actually, no, it wasn't that long. It wasn't that long. I'm tripping. But it did last a pretty lengthy time. I think it was 1.5 years he had a dispute with Don King, but he ultimately had gotten out of his contract with Don, and then he, went to do his own thing after that. Well, that's him with his spoon. But other than that, yeah, like I said though, I think right now this lawsuit is kind of I agree with some of you guys' opinion is that I think this is the writing on the wall from the Zone. I think this is the writing on the wall, and I think based off this situation, they can either pull out or they're going to have to do major restructuring. And I think that's one of the two things that's going to happen. They're going to do some significant restructure in their for the U.S. market for the U.S. team, and or they're going to just pull out altogether and just settle Canelo and just say fuck it, we're just going to dump boxing altogether, just dump it. Now I heard word from the grapevine, and if somebody said something in the chat that the Bellator is not happy with his own, they want out of their contract with them. Don't quote me on this. I'm not saying that's true, but I saw someone in a comment in the chat saying this. So let me look into that situation if that's true. Let me see. Let me see if that's just a rumor somebody just put out that couldn't be verified. But somebody said this in the chat that I was on, or live stream that I was on. I'm sorry. Well, from the looks of it, doesn't say that the Bellator went out, are looking to get out of their contract, but that was someone was saying. But I just thought I see if I could find anything that could verify that person's statement on that. But no. Anyways, what's up, Ahmed? So, anyways, yeah, guys, that's just the whole situation. That's my thoughts on it. The last thing I want to talk about here is this one. Now, was Deontay Wilder right to not to sign with his own? If you want my answer on that one, I say yes, he was right not to do it, based off what we see what's happening right now. Okay, and I know, and shout out to Hamed, shout out to Unbiased, and they, including myself, these guys, we vehemently criticized Deontay Wilder for not signing onto his own when he was first offered the money to take it. It was either $100 million or $120 million. We called him foolish. We called him stupid. Yeah, I mean, we all did. Okay, now Unbiased and Ahmed, shout out to them. Based off, they could be rational here. Based off what they seen and what's going on with the zone right now in recent days, in recent months, before and after the pandemic hit, they start to realize that maybe Deontay Wilder was right to not sign on to the deal based on what's going on right now. Okay. And let me lay out the foundation why he was right not to sign on to it. Okay. Because some of these people out there, I see some channels who are even coming to that realization, saying that yeah, he was right to not sign on to them. And then you got their supporters and their subscribers on those channels who are criticizing them and saying, "What are you saying, mate? What are you saying? Wilder was stupid not to sign on to that deal." This is what they're still saying right now. They're still saying that Wilder was stupid to not sign on to the zone deal. I mean, newsflash, how many times do we have to explain this to you guys? Hypothetically, if Deontay Wilder had signed on to the zone deal, all right, let's talk about this. If he had accepted the deal, the AJ fight would not have been the immediate fight. Okay, let's get that in your heads, people. That was not going to be the fight that was going to happen right away. AJ and Deontay Wilder had interim fights before they were going to actually fight. Okay, Wilder had a mandatory fight against Brazil that he had to fulfill with the WBC, and AJ had a voluntary fight with Big Baby Miller. Of course, AJ's situation got a little bit complicated because Big Baby Miller got popped for PEDs. He failed 3 different drug tests, and that fight was called off. Okay, and Hearn and AJ were scrambling to find a replacement opponent because they were like 5 weeks out before the show was about to begin in Madison Square Garden. Okay, Luis Ortiz turned down the money. Okay, well, not he particularly, but his team did. And what's sad about that is that his promoter and his manager or his promoter didn't even bother consulting with their fighter to ask him whether if he wanted to take the fight or not. And that's fucked up too. And he was upset about that. Okay, but that's the case now, but it is what it is. So Andy Ruiz was the last minute replacement. And we saw the result of that fight. Andy Ruiz beat the crap out of Anthony Joshua. Yes, he got his ass beat. All right. Joshua took a beating and he lost that fight. Now, due to that fact, Wilder and AJ was not going to happen based off the fact that Joshua lost to Ruiz. He was locked into a rematch clause with Ruiz, which was 5 months down the road after he took that loss. And after AJ had gotten his belts back, we haven't seen him fought the entire year after that. Okay, Wilder, yes, he got past Brazil. Wilder would have been stuck. He would have had no opponent. And based off what's going on right now, the zone would probably approach him and say, "Okay, we're gonna go ahead and fund your next fight, but we can't give you the $40 or $20 million that we guaranteed you." That's what's going. That's the reality of it. All right. And another thing I have to add too is that the zone admitted that they fucked up on why they didn't secure the services of Deontay Wilder. They've admitted it. John Skipper came out and said that we weren't prepared to answer critical financial questions that they were asking for during that negotiation. Now, a lot of people saying that Wilder didn't sign on to the zone because of the hatred of Eddie Hearn. Okay, yeah, he didn't like Eddie Hearn, but the fact is that he was willing to sit down and talk to them and see what they were going to offer. Okay, you got to give Wilder credit for that. All right, he had every right to ask these questions. One, how much is my opponent, Anthony Joshua, my potential opponent, how much is he making for the fight? The zone couldn't answer that question. Number two, why is Anthony Joshua not signed to a multi-fight deal, but you want me to sign to a multi-fight deal? Zone could not answer that question. And then the last question they asked was, okay, based off this magnitude of this fight can make a lot of revenue. So what type of back-end deal can I get for this fight? The zone could not answer that question. So those are three critical questions they couldn't answer during that negotiation table, and that's why Wilder's team walked out. Because that right there was just totally excusable. Why? This goes to show that these guys were inept in when it comes to negotiations. Let's be real. They just weren't, they just like have what's the word I'm looking for? I'm saying not competent is a strong word to use, but they just weren't experienced enough to handle situations like this, especially a fighter like Deontay Wilder, who's not cheap, by the way. He's pretty expensive. Okay. So maybe if they offered him a same deal like Canelo got, where supposedly he would get a back end deal by getting not only the some type of fee, some type of licensing fee, but also get some type of subscriptions fees based off the number of subscribers he acquires for the fights. That's something they should have prepared to offer Wilder, but they didn't. That's the problem. Okay. And Joe says that Joe says that way too many good reasons why Wilder turned it down. Yeah. Tommy Temper says, I wonder how much Wilder would have lost out if he had signed. Exactly. He would have been lost out on lots of money. He would have been stuck in a situation where he couldn't get out of. He'd probably go the Canelo route and take this to court and get out of his contract with his own. He'd probably gone the same route. And yet you still got people out there still saying that he should have still signed on to the zone. I mean, fucking kidding me. I mean, seriously, man. Look, I know you don't have to like Deontay Wilder, but fucking God's sakes, at least be rational and have a fucking, just at least be, be rational for once, all right? And see for the situation for what it is. In reality, the zone probably don't have the money to pay Canelo his guaranteed purse. This is what I think this is all about. They probably don't have the money because not only the pandemic has fucked them up, it just made things worse. I think they were having financial troubles before the pandemic. Let's be real. They were. Yeah, and we also wouldn't have gotten the Fury fight either. Let's be real. Thank you, Joe. Even though Wilder lost, but still, we wanted to see that rematch anyway. If Wilder signed on to the zone, we wouldn't have gotten that rematch. More than likely. Let me see. Hamed says, "Why did the zone USA spend so much money on Germany soccer? Not a smart idea." Really, I did not know they acquired rights to Germany football. Well, why would they do that? Look, no disrespect to football, soccer that is here in the United States, which is known. That's not a very popular sport here. I mean, yeah, it's we do have people who are into soccer here, but that's not a popular sport here in the United States. It's not. Now, if this was the NFL or the NBA, now we're talking, or even Major League Baseball. But other than that, no, no. Why would they do that? See, that goes to incompetence, not knowing the market, not understanding the U.S. market. I just want to know, who did they hire at the zone? to do research and development. I mean, market. Who's a marketing analyst? Who do they hire there? I mean, seriously, what in the world? Why? I didn't even notice. I mean, why would they do that? Oh my God. Now Hamed says that Andrade is becoming becoming annoying guys like Bruce Wayne and Black Horseman have become Andrade apologists. Yeah, you know what? That's on them. But like Horseman likes to always say, you gotta keep it real, keep that same energy. Well, it's funny Horseman keeps when I listen to that debate where he got destroyed by Unbiased and he doesn't want to admit that he got murdered by him. He wants to go out and say that, when Unbiased was bringing up actual facts about how Andrade fucked up his own career, how he sabotaged his own career by making stupid decisions and mistakes, and he continues to do that today to some degree. Unbiased comes out, not Unbiased. Horseman comes out and says that, well, why are you guys talking about the past? Why are you talking about the past? Well, excuse me. As I recall, he's being a hypocrite there because he always talked about the past to go after Deontay Wilder, criticize him. So why the fuck you don't allow other guys criticize Andrade's past, but it says okay for you to criticize Deontay Wilder's past. And let's be fair here. Deontay Wilder's put in way more work than Demetrius Andrade. That's a fact. And Wilder does not have the best resume when it comes to heavyweights. Let's not get it twisted. He doesn't. But he put in way more work, and he's more of a proven champion than fucking Demetrius Andrade. I'm just keeping it real. Now, I'm not saying that Demetrius Andrade is not a proven fighter. No. I'm not getting it twisted. What I'm saying is that he's not a proven champion. He's not. What's the word I'm talking about? He's not a premier champion like Deontay Wilder is. Let's be real. I just think that Horseman was being a hypocrite there when he says that you could criticize Deontay Wilder for his past to bring him down and bring up the past bullshit that he did, but it's not okay to do that for Andrade. All right. And that's the one thing that pissed me off about that debate. He was being a hypocrite there. Okay. He didn't want people to bring up Andrade's bullshit, but it's okay to bring up Wilder's bullshit for what he did in the past. All right. So keep the same energy. Let's keep it real. All right. Now, Bruce Wayne, I don't know why he's being, a Andrade apologist, but look, that's on them. They can do that. But at the same time, don't give Andre a pass for the bullshit he's doing right now. All he's doing is talking. Has he even made any efforts to make these fights happen? No. In fact, this dude comes out and says that I will only fight Canelo if there's a live gate. What type of shit is that? All right, man. Enough about Andrade. This stream is not about him. All right. Again, I'm not speaking about Demetrius Andrade unless he fights somebody. Let me just be real. No more Luke Keelers. No more Walter Dondas. None of those guys, man. That's all he's been fighting ever since he signed on to the zone. Ever since he got that title, that WBO title. Yes, that Billy Joe Saunders fight was not his fault. Why that fell through, and Billy Joe Saunders didn't make any attempts to sit down and renege and renegotiate for that fight. I get that. That's not his fault. But at the same time, there's plenty of other fighters for him to fight out there. No more fucking new Luke Keelers. No more fucking Walter Dokendon. None of these damn WBO contenders that we don't even know, don't even know and what they're about. None of this shit, man. That's why I don't think about the WBO, man. They be having some weird ass fighters that they rank, man. Fighters you never heard of, man. Now, I thought the IBF was worse at that, but goddamn, the WBO is probably even the worst. No disrespect to them, but damn. The fight doctor's in the building. What's up? All right. Mm. All right, guys. Let me bring some of you guys on. I'm not gonna have too much time, so let's just go ahead and chop it up a little bit. Let's talk about this little lawsuit. Get you guys' opinion where you think it's going to go. So yeah. I'm live, guys. I'm live, guys. All right. Oh, hi, doctor. What's happening?
What's going on, brother?
Not much, man. I thought I'd get this early morning stream. I hear feedback, man. You might want to turn off that video in your background, man.
I got you.
Cool. Yeah. So, we kind of predict this thing was going to happen. So, what's your take on this lawsuit? How you predict this thing is going to go down? The
I mean,
end result of it.
honestly, I don't know. I think. Do you still hear the feedback?
Yeah.
Okay, it's these cheap ass headphones. I'm going to get some
It's all,
decent headphones. But
it's all good.
if the zone is smart, then I think they will settle and try to get you know this resolved as quickly as humanly possible. Um, if Golden Boy is smart, they'll just cut their losses and I think Golden Boy is no more. I think Golden Boy is over and done with.
Yeah.
Somebody made the point last night that the reason why Oscar De La Hoya is entertaining this whole business about coming out of retirement is because he sees that the ship is sinking,
Right.
and I think at this point now the ship is sank.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible. I mean, but here's the thing about that. Here's a kicker about that. I see Smoke is in the chat though. I'll get Smoke to chime in a minute. But here's the kicker about this. It's what's funny though. You mentioned Oscar De La Hoya coming out of retirement. That he probably understands that the writing's on the wall. That's why he needs to make some money before he calls it a day. He probably get out of the boxing game altogether. But I will say this though. The zone, according to the source, after the lawsuit was put out, according to a source close to the situation with the zone executives feel they deemed not only Gennady Golovkin as a premier opponent, they deemed Oscar De La Hoya as a premier opponent for Canelo. So what's funny about that situation is that De La Hoya hasn't fought in 11 years, and the last fight he was beat up systematically by Manny Pacquiao, a career flyweight. So, I mean, I don't know. Let me ask you this: how realistic do you think if once the death settles between all the parties involved in the situation, how realistic do you think that fight will come off between De La Hoya and the Zone? I mean, De La Hoya and Canelo. And if Canelo does agree to it, would he agree to that fight being on the Zone?
Well, so at the end of the day, money solves all problems, to quote Lennox Lewis. And I
Right.
think that realistically, that's an easy fight for Canelo.
Right. Oh yeah.
I mean, that's a ridiculously easy fight. So me personally, if I'm Canelo, if I can avoid having to go to court, if I can collect my $35 million, and if I can knock out the Golden Girl, if I can do all three of those things at the same time, then I'm checking that box.
Yeah.
I'm checking that box.
All right, I hear you, man. But yeah, they got to settle this, man. I just can't see the zone wanting to drag this out because it's gonna cost them more financially, and plus they're trying to procure another $1 billion of funding from an investor. So when a future investor see things like this in the headlines, this will make them very weary. They're gonna wonder what the hell's going on. Why should I invest into your company that spent over $500 billion recklessly over 2 years? Why should I invest? What reassurances can you give me that I'm going to get back my investment if I put money into your company based off what I'm seeing here?
Listen, I would love to be a fly on the wall at the next board of directors meeting for the zone. I'm sure there's going to be somebody there with pictures of De La Hoya in fishnets and the headlines of him doing strange and unusual things with kitchen utensils,
Right.
and like this is the guy who we've basically hung our hat on. So yeah, If I'm the zone, I want to untangle myself from this business. To be completely honest, I want to untangle myself from the Golden Boy promotions business.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's what it looks like. I think he's gonna have to he's gonna have to Yeah, they're gonna have to settle. I think they're gonna have to let him go, let him be a free agent, let him go the route that he wants to go. I think he's angling to go the Miguel Cotto, the Manny Pacquiao, and the at one point Oscar De La Hoya and the Floyd Mayweather route, where they were able to make enough money to where they were able to fund their, to market themselves, promote themselves, and fund their own fights, as you want to call it, So that's, I mean, that's what I think that's what he's going to angle to do. So, last question I want to ask you before I get smoking is, now, as far as Deontay Wilder is concerned, man. Now, the ultimate question I got to ask you: was he right to not sign on to the zone? I know we talked about this yesterday. I know one person didn't want to answer the question whether he was right or wrong to reject the offer. But do you think he was right to turn down that offer?
So
Based on what's going
hindsight
on
is
now.
2020. So right now it's easy to look back and say, yeah, well, it was a no-brainer to turn down this that offer from DAZN. So maybe Wilder's brain trust knew something we didn't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they were able to see the writing on the wall with this whole Canelo deal. You know, um, I'm sure that there are a lot of snitches in the business of boxing, just like there is in any other business. And I'm sure that, when you have a cokehead who's at the head of your promotional company, I'm sure that there's some people who are part of that organization who are a little bit disgruntled and probably feeding information to some of your competitors.
Right.
So I'm sure there was a lot of that going on, and there's probably somebody in Wild's like, look, man, you don't want to be caught up in this business because it's going south.
Right.
So, I'm only speculating, but I'm thinking that is what was going on, and that's why, Wilder turned down the zone offer. But yeah, like I said, hindsight is 2020, and yeah, it looks like it was smart business
Right.
to not get yourself tangled up in this, complete cluster.
Well, let me before I get spoken here. Let me before I get him in here. I I be got key. Now this guy right here, he's a Babbitt Eddie Hearn supporter, and he doesn't like Deontay Wilder, but I allow him on my channel because he's funny to me. But but he's cool. And sometimes he says here that who's going to pay that ridiculous amount plus quarantine $280 million? Well, the zone's going to have to pay that if they lose that court battle. That's what's going to happen because they're the ones who are in a breach of contract according to Canelo and his legal representative. So yeah, that's who's going to pay that money. Just to answer your question. So since you're in here now, I want to ask you the question, Aki. Was Wilder right to not sign on to the zone? You're the one, as I remember, you called him stupid for not signing on to it. So I'm asking you now, based off what's going on, is he right to turn it down? After all, was he right? Yes or no? Now, Smoke, go ahead. Go ahead, Smoke, chime in. What do you think about the situation with
Wow.
the Canelo battle on the De La Hoya, and how you think how this outcome's going to be?
Wow, you guys have just blown my mind all over the place. First off, peace to you, Dan. Peace to Fights Doctor in the chat. First, the first image that I can't get out of my head is the board meeting at DAZN talking about this, right?
Yeah.
So is the Coke in the room? Are the Coke and the hookers in the room? Are they talking about Oscar De La Hoya's Coke and hookers?
Yeah.
Um,
No, I think Oscar De La Hoya is the hooker.
Yeah. Hey,
yeah,
hold
all
on,
right.
guys. Hold on, real quickly. Mr. Shelton, shout out to Mr. Shelton in chat. He says that Wilder should have taken the money, 100%. Well, you know what, Mr. Shelton, I respect you. That's your opinion, but let's be real. As I stated, he should have taken the money. I get that, but there were financial questions that the zone could not answer,
Hell
could
no.
not get to the Wilder, and if you can't answer those financial questions, why should you sign on to that money? Yes, it's big dollars,
Correct.
but they couldn't guarantee him that money. Let's be real. They couldn't guarantee him that.
Correct. And
Go
not
ahead.
only that, not like really. This was answered last June when Ruiz beat the dog shit out of AJ. Like
Right.
all of this should have ended right then,
Exactly.
because it would have been stupid for him to have been in that contract at that moment, which
Yeah.
is the very next fight, right? So this was answered a long time ago. It didn't take that long for the results to come in. It didn't need to take. The hindsight 2020 was like 2 months. Right. So we can keep going about how it was not a smart idea. First off, AJ lost. Second off, Wilder lost. Thirdly, the deal itself was to cap his salary for the biggest, most lucrative fight in boxing twice. right?
Right.
Like not only the original, but also the rematch which would have been even bigger. You know, capture salary twice. Like the entire thing was dumb. No, he shouldn't have taken it. And I mean, I get that. All right. So if you want to blame Al for the zone right now, if you want to say that it's Al's responsibility to save the zone from itself for the good of the fans and for good of boxing, then yeah, Wilder should have signed it because hey, they could take all the L's in the world as long as fans get the fights that they want, right?
Right.
If you want to take that tact, then sure, he should have signed it. Outside of that, if you have any sort of brain for your own self-interest, then hell no.
There you go. Fair enough. Fair enough, man. Good point. Good point, man. So, again, how do you think this situation is gonna end as far as the litigation battle between Canelo versus not only the Zone but also with Golden Boy and so forth? So, how do you
Oh,
see the situation play out?
this is Operation Cut Your Losses. Like, you know, this is going to get right. So when DAZN told them that they're not going to broadcast, that was DAZN telling Canelo to fuck off. Like,
Right.
right, they already prepared for lawyers and all that stuff. They're not paying that contract. They right, whether they settle for some smaller amount out of court, if they are smart, well, forget if they're smart. If during their coke-fueled orgies that they call a business meeting, they had the wherewithal to put performance-based incentives and drivers in the contract, then this should be a no-brainer because if Canelo's fights were selling the way that they anticipated, then I think we would know the numbers for those viewership. I think we would know the viewership numbers, right?
Right.
Getting 600,000 domestically for a unification with Jacobs is dog shit, right?
Well,
I mean,
I mean, yeah,
Jamal
yeah,
James got 800K for fighting that fucking dude, 2 weeks ago.
yeah. Let me just say this too. And a lot of people are really, really, praising that as a victory lap for the Zone. In actuality, you have to look deeper into that. Okay, that's great they got that many views, but how many of those views were actual subscribers? Paying subscribers, that is. And are they able to sustain those subscribers for a good long stretches of time? This was my biggest worry when they first launched this model and this program with the Zone, is that yes, you bring Canelo on board, the biggest pay-per-view star at the time in boxing, arguably he is, okay. But the question is that you're taking him off pay-per-view, bringing him onto a subscription at how is he going to entice and convince his supporters to pay for a yearly subscription or pay a monthly subscription? In reality, they're not going to do that because what they're going to do is they're going to look at it and say, okay, if Canelo's going to fight twice a year or maybe 3 times a year if we're lucky, I only got to pay 30 at the time, which is $10 a month. I only got to pay $30 to watch his fights. I'm not paying
Right.
I'm not paying a year subscriber to not watch Canelo fight. I don't care about the other fighters and what other content they have on his own. I only want to watch him fight. That's what a majority of his casual fans are. They only watch him fight. They don't watch anyone else that fights unless they're on the undercard. That's about it. Okay. And this is the biggest mistake, and this was my biggest worry, is that how could they turn that into retainable subscribers based off those new subscribers they gain per fight that whenever he fights. And
Go ahead. I was just gonna say, of the business moves that I've seen them do, right?
yeah,
The only thing that I've seen that I completely agree with has been the not taking the Dillian White fight and not taking the Canelo fight.
right.
This is the business moves that I'm impressed with. Like even like when John Skipper said that it was his fault that the Wilder deal didn't go through, everybody was like, "Oh yeah, he's just falling on his sword."
Okay.
Meanwhile, if you look at all of their business deals, they're all dumb as fuck. Like I'll tell you what, right? So I'm no big. I've never thought that the zone was going to work.
Well, yeah. Hold on, hold on. Yeah, hold
Let
on.
me just finish. Let me just
Oh, go
finish.
ahead.
I want
Go
to.
ahead. Go ahead.
It's real fast.
Uh-huh.
But I was actually going to give them my credit card number for the Canelo Jacobs and the AJ fight because they were like 30 days apart, and they were like free first month, and then $9.99 after that. So
There
I was
you
like,
go.
if you actually do that, right? If you guys actually pull this off, it's not a bait and switch. Then I'm gonna mess with you. Like I'm gonna forget this whole like Big Baby Miller fights and Jesse Vargas fights. I'm not trying to hear none of that dumb shit or Amir Khan. I'm not trying to hear that. But
Yeah.
for this group of fights, I would definitely give you guys my credit card and I will continue to subscribe. What do
Right.
they do? They ended that whole 30-day free trial thing and then jacked the price up. They doubled the price.
Yeah, they did that
right?
in 3 months. They did that in
They
4
did that
months
right
after they
before the
launched.
Canelo, but they did that right before the Canelo Jacobs fight. And at that point, it was just like, okay, this is just a matter of time. Like,
Oh yeah,
if you understand,
that was a red flag. That was a red flag.
it's a huge red flag.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say though, that's a huge red flag, and I had people on the other cross of the pond argue with me and say, no, that's not a red flag. That's just to show how successful the Sony is in a short period of time. I was like, no, it isn't. How can you jack up the price within a short time span and then no longer offer free trial? That makes no sense.
Bro, like, listen, like the American consumer can be had in any number of ways. And I'm telling you, like, here's how I can be had. Once I give you my credit card, I will probably forget to cancel a subscription, right?
Yeah.
So since I know this about myself, I'm very careful about when I pull my credit card out in the first place, right? So you got to do something in order for me to get my credit card out of my pocket, right?
Right.
So that was the deal. That was the value add for me. I'm like, okay, even if you guys aren't going to be around, if you're fly by night organization, you've given me enough at this point that fine, I'll take a bet. I'll take a flyer with you.
Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah. So Aki says that DAZN's clause is that we determine who the prime opponent is, and the deal breaker is DAZN it puts them all in power. DAZN is in quarter. I guess what he's alluding to is that DAZN pretty much have this legal fight in their hands because they have a clause in the contract that said they get to determine who their premier opponent is of Canelo Alvarez. I'm like, well, okay. That's not the issue.
Not the issue. The issue is out of control labor costs. The runaway labor costs is the issue.
Yeah, the issue is that does not specify. Well, there's no clause in there that specifies that DAZN has a right to discretionary decrease your purse, even though they agreed upon that was a guaranteed amount he's going to get per fight. That's what's happening. There's no language in their contract that specifies that they have a right to do that. Especially in the case of the pandemic, they have no right to do that. So that's why Canelo's taking this to court. Now they're going to have to do a better job in describing who a premier opponent is. They got to do a better job than Oscar De La Hoya has been retired for 11 years. And yet a judge is going to look at that and say, okay, if Oscar De La Hoya is considered a premier opponent, he's been retired for 11 years. In his last fight, he took a beating. So how exactly he's a premier opponent? And second, if I'm the judge who's deliberating the case, what gives you the justification to decrease a guaranteed purse? A purse that was guaranteed in this guy's contract. What gives you that justification? There's no language in here that specifies that.
Well, here's really the thing. If I'm a judge, based on what I've seen so far, and I haven't looked through the documentation, but I have seen the clause where it says DAZN is in a contract with Golden Boy. So at that point, and DAZN pays Golden Boy, and it's Golden Boy that needs to manage Canelo.
Yeah.
At that point, it becomes a who's culpable, and I'm not sure that DAZN is culpable. Like DAZN has a right to refusal for Golden Boy cards. It has nothing to do with Canelo specifically, from what I saw.
Right. So Tarvis, what's up with Tarvis here? Tarvis says that DAZN didn't know the proper demo to market to, and how disaster business plan considering our market. Yeah, exactly. This was disastrous from the start. And I even called it out when they first launched it. I mean, I did. I was concerned. Look, I was not being concerned just hoping for the zone to fail. That was not my intention. I did subscribe to the service. Believe it or not, I did. Because I love boxing. I'm a fan of boxing. I even said myself a year ago that DAZN put on the best damn cards. Unfortunately, sadly, they didn't produce financial results based off those damn good cards they put on, those matchmaking. And let's be fair though, some of those cards were not that good either. Let's not get it twisted. For the most part, they did put on some good fights. I'm just being honest here. And like I said though, you cannot launch. I mean, it would have been okay if they weren't paying out these ridiculous amount of purses. If they, let me backtrack. Their original model would have worked if only they weren't paying out these ridiculous amount of purses. It was just not sustainable if you do that.
No, it wouldn't. It's two different things. It was two different things from what I can tell. Like, so there was the ill will towards Eddie Hearn and him being the face, right? So that was just the DAZN USA thing, right? So. But we can set that aside. The issue that DAZN has is that people don't actually stream sports.
That's true.
Okay? That's really
And
what it is.
plus,
Right? In our
yeah,
market,
not
that
only
does not
that,
actually.
yeah, and not only that, sorry to cut you off. Not only that, is that the zone runs on its OTT provider. They run on broadband, and the problem with that is that Canelo's biggest fan base, majority of their biggest their fan block, I should say, lives in rural America or rural Mexico. They don't have access to broadband there, so that was another problem. You know what I'm saying?
Correct. Right. So
So,
it's the way that people actually consume the content and interact with it, with the sport.
yeah,
That was part of with sports, not even with that sport specifically, but with sports
right,
in general. Like people
right,
don't stream that shit. And then on top of that, you have the idea that you are going to enter a market in a sport that isn't popular in that market. Right. So the
right.
idea that you're going to take over America with boxing is fucking stupid. And
Exactly.
then and then you add away labor cost. Like you overpay for people who have some market share, but they don't own that much of the market share in America anyway. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Let me. I don't see his comments here. Aki, man, like I told you, he's a funny guy, but he be trolling sometimes. But I'm gonna go at him with common sense here. He says here that Wilder is a loser for turning down $120 million. I believe he wanted to fight another 40 tomato cans without fighting AJ back to back. Well, Aki, I'm not sure if you really paid attention, but again, if Wilder signed on to that deal, he would not have gotten the AJ fight immediately. Repeat. If he had signed on to the deal, he would not have gotten that AJ fight immediately. AJ and Wilder would have an interim fight in between. Wilder would have would be tied up with his manager Brazil, which he took care of in one round. AJ would have to fight Big Baby Miller, which that fight got scratched because Big Baby Miller tested positive for for 3 different banned substances, like a fucking idiot. And then they were struggling to find a replacement opponent to save that show, and they got Andy Ruiz. And look what happened in that fight. Andy Ruiz beat the crap out of Anthony Joshua. And since Joshua lost that fight, then hypothetically, the plans for Wilder and AJ for a unification bout for undisputed title would have been scrapped. And AJ would have been forced to fight Ruiz in a rematch, which took place last year in December. And now we're in 2020. AJ hasn't fought in a whole year before and after the pandemic and post-pandemic. Okay, so Wilder would be stuck, not knowing what to do. Even if he wanted to fight, the zone would probably approach him like they approached Canelo and say, "Hey, we gotta have to decrease your purse." And Wilder would not gonna play with that shit. He doesn't you don't play with Wilder's money. He's like, "Nah, fuck that. I'm taking you to court. You're gonna give me what you promised me." So you're gonna call him a loser, but in actuality, he probably turned out to be right because there were certain financial questions that could not be answered by his own executives when they met with him. And again, he would not have gotten that fight if he had signed on to it right away, given that AJ had lost and had a setback with Andy Ruiz. But what's up, Leak? Go ahead, Smoke. You want to say something?
What's up, bro?
Yeah. I was just gonna say. The contract was $100 million for 3 fights, right? Or if you want to go through the other thing that's out there in the zeitgeist is that it was $120 million for 4 fights, right? So let's just do a recap. Since that offer was tendered, right? Wilder's fought 3 times.
Yeah.
Right. He fought Fury, Brazil, and Ortiz. Right. And he got it reported somewhere like it's in the realm of $70 million for those 3 fights, right? And that doesn't have anything to do with back end and in perpetuity or anything like that.
Hold on,
right?
Smoke. I got look. Aki is at it again. He said, "Hey, look, he still got his 120 million." I'm like, Aki, no, he would not have gotten his 120 million. If that's the case, then Canelo Alvarez would have gotten his 365 million. I don't know if you're keeping up here because Canelo is not even getting that. The zone is telling that they're refusing to pay his guaranteed money that he was promised. That's why he's taking him to court. So what makes you think Wilder would still got his 120 million if he had signed on to the zone? He had been stuck. He wasn't going to get all that money right away. He would have to do that if he had fulfilled his fight obligations.
They wouldn't have even got to the 3 fight. Like we wouldn't even be in the 3rd fight today.
I know,
if he signed that contract.
We probably wouldn't even be on the 2nd fight. Let's be honest. So what are you talking? This dude, man. And look, Joe host is like, I keep. What are you on?
So let me say. Let me say. Let's get all of these moving parts right. Yeah. So Ortiz. Ruiz beat him. So there was an immediate rematch, right? Yeah. And that happened in December. So we know that wouldn't happen. So then after that, there was mandatories.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
That's where we are right now. Is AJ needs to face mandatories. When in the hell was the undisputed supposed to happen?
Well, you gotta tell Aki that, man. But anyways, let me get Jalika here. What's up, Jalik?
What's poppin', man?
What's hopping, dog? So what do you? Not much, man. I thought I'd get this morning chat in before I get off here. But I
Yeah.
want to ask you something, man. So the lawsuit's been filed. I know you and all of us were talking about this in the chat yesterday, last night, and earlier this morning. So, what do you think, man? How do you see this thing playing out, man? Yeah, how do you see this play out? How do you see this ending?
First, I appreciate you having me on. Shout out to Professor, the first Black scientist in Northern California that discovered
Stop it!
the,
Stop it! Stop it!
the original. Nah. I've been saying it, and people was laughing at me. They say you tripping, you tripping, you tripping, you tripping. See, they had to put Canelo in his place. You can't have that much leverage in the sport of boxing and also not bring in this subscription. So I thought it would I was just a little early. I thought it would happen with a controversial decision loss, kind of like how Oscar, when in my opinion, I thought he beat Sugar Shane Mosley the second time. But around that same exact time when he was fighting Shane, he was having contract disputes and going back and forth, leaving the company and starting Golden Boy with top rank. Because boxing is a business, you got too much leverage. Now, if you bring in super numbers, then it's a totally different story. Because Floyd was bringing in super big numbers. Now, let's just break down the zone for a bit. The zone, the concept of the zone is great because a lot of things are digital now. Nobody really look at their big ass TV. Some do, but a lot of times you can just go on Instagram to look at basketball highlights instead of turning on your TV to watch ESPN Sports Center.
Right.
So with that being the case, from a I use the word a lot, but from a psychological perspective, every promoter goal is to have a pay-per-view star that sells a lot. So even if the promoters are beefing, if a company comes in that's literally a threat, because like you just said, the zone, no matter what you say, they had the best fights overall, pound for pound in 2019. Overall, from top to bottom, they had the best fights. So if the zone was to gain traction, the zone literally puts the pay-per-view model as a threat. So that's why Wilder never signed that. Why would Al Heyman put his whole concept of pay-per-view status in threat by allowing him to sign with the zone? That's the stupid. So that put pressure on Al Heyman to come up with more money. So the zone, if you really look at it, in my opinion, the zone actually increased Wilder's value in a sense. Because
I agree with that.
Because it on a different level, right? So with this Canelo situation, they're definitely devaluing him. They're definitely devaluing Canelo because it's a situation. And I read up on it. Golden Boy promised the zones they're gonna lose in court, bro. Golden Boy is probably gonna be like Lou DiBella within a year.
Yeah,
this is just my opinion. They promised the zone behind Canelo's back that the Canelo would fight Triple G. So the zone made a whole lot of mistakes, kind of like a rookie mistakes. They thought just come with money and they just gonna take over boxing with that attitude. And they value people high. So if you take that the case, they're in a situation where they're going to battle in court and they got millionaires backing them. And we're looking at the zone just from the US. We got to realize the zone ain't going to go nowhere outside of the country. We're just talking about the US. So I think they're probably going to file for bankruptcy, either that or they're going to file and have NDA agreements and Canelo is going to be free. See, the thing that makes it super interesting is that Canelo also went at Golden Boy, who got their welfare check from the zone based on Canelo.
Yeah, that's true.
So homeboy Oscar is like vultures now. They like vulture thieves.
I was gonna say though. Yeah, I was gonna say though. Damn, I lost my train of thought. I was gonna add something to what you just said there about the Golden Boy situation. Oh yeah, about the Golovkin situation. It turns out that Canelo did accept. He did accept the proposal to fight Triple G. He did accept that. It was Triple G.
It was later, right? And they had to offer him even more money.
Yeah, it was later, and Golovkin was the one who turned it down. He decided that he wanted to go fight. Yuri Munta, who we thought was as mandatory, but it turns out it's not as mandatory. The IBF had to come out and put out a statement and say, no, we never ordered that fight.
Oh wow. So yeah, that goes to show you Triple G is ducking as well because they're both enable and spoil.
Yeah.
Like for instance, if somebody told you you're going to get 35 million no matter who you fight, why would you have an incentive to fight somebody? So Zone brung everything on themselves.
Right. And you know, to be fair though, I was going to say, to add something too. To be fair to Triple G, I could see why he turned it down, because look, he's getting $100 million. He doesn't want to go straight into a third Canelo fight. He knows he's going to lose that fight. He knows he's going to take more punishment to the point that he may have to retire after that fight. So I think what he wants to do is just milk the situation, take some easy touch-ups, milk that $100 million as much as he can before he calls it a career. Exactly. I think that's what he's doing.
And he's not allowed.
He's not going to be allowed. And Lord Fenneroy, shout out to Lord Fenneroy. He's been a long-time subscriber of mine, and he's from the UK. He said that if boxers had fought often like they did in the 40s and the 50s, etc., the model probably would have worked on a subscription basis. But the guys only fight 2 times a year. It just isn't worth it. That's a good point. Now, if Canelo would have fought like the age of Ray Robinson, who fought like 5-6 times a year or 8 times a year, then yeah, the model would definitely have worked. But we're not that age anymore. That day and age is gone, man. So good point.
I'm saying, what are they doing? They're looking at boxing 70 years ago and saying like building a business model on in 2020. Like, come on, bro.
Hey, look, Akeem, man, he being fucking stupid, man. Look what he said here. He says that, look, has Wilder made $120 million? Yeah, he said, hey, look, has Wilder made $120 million since that lucrative deal? No. Wilder is just not that bright, boy. Even in school, Lou DiBella confessed to it. I'm like, well, all right.
We're still on that. We're not on that. Obvious.
Right. So here's just to clear it up. 20 million was for the interim fight. It was going to be Dominic Brazil. 40 million for the first fight. 40 million for a rematch. That is a total of $100 million.
Yeah, he made it. Like, come on, bro.
First of all, he would have not gotten that extra 80 million because AJ lost against Ruiz, and he was tied up in a rematch that took place December last year. Yeah, and they would have didn't even fight this year. So what are you talking about, bro? Oh my fucking goodness, man! Jesus Christ!
Yeah, it's like, come on, bro. We not even. That's it's. That's his opinion. I respect.
Yeah, they need for this to be Wilder's L. Like whatever the hell's going on in the world, Wilder needs to be taking the L at the same time.
We talking about Canelo, bro.
And yeah, exactly.
Currently, he's not even with the zone. So if the dude is making millions. If he didn't make that, he still almost made that amount, and he's still a free agent and is able to fight Tyson Fury and AJ for undisputed. Yeah. So it looks like he made the right choice. But like we said before, why would you let the zone? Why would you sign with the zone if you Al Heyman and mess up your business structure? They're a threat, bro. Remember Napster? Napster was a threat to CDs, bro. Like,
right, that's true.
Do that, bro.
I'm trying to tell you that Lou DiBella lost his relationship with PBC behind that move, just the meeting.
Yep, exactly, bro. You can't. That's gonna mess up their whole business plan. Even though I thought it ended up working good because it increased Wilder's value.
Yeah, it did.
So it's a lot of positive things that came out of the zone. Sometimes in life you got a business and it just fails. So I ain't shitting on the zone because that it is what it is. So the zone had to blame themselves. I would have never signed. Remember before he signed with the zone, ESPN came out and Top Rank said we're not going to sign. They made it seem like Triple G had a bad attitude. ESPN. I got an article. Yeah. And they knew it was up. They was like, bro, we not gonna be playing with you. And I mean, people tired of that fight. Like, and let me speak on Canelo a little bit more.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Canelo, I always say this. Canelo was like the rapper that come out in their first 1 or 2 CDs. They sell a lot of sell a lot of records, and they living off that. But it's about what have you done with me lately. The game is changing. He's been a pro for 15 years. No matter if he's 30 or not, he's been a pro for 15 years. So It's always fresh people coming in that change the game. So even in basketball, when LeBron James, it affect him a little bit, but it's other stars coming in that fill that void. So it's a lot of younger fighters coming in. You got Teofimo coming in, fighting Lomachenko, and to Homeboy, for some reason, he doesn't really connect to the public. Canelo, he just living off that. Oh, okay, I'm Mexican, I'm a star. But even when I look at the Spanish channels, they be saying a lot of the similar stuff that we say here. It's like, okay, bro, you got to market yourself. You can't live off years ago. You living off what resume you living off? Laura, what are you talking about? So it's what have you done with me lately? Like nobody cares about that.
Yeah, that's a good point because I think because Canelo's trying to live off the pretty boy look like De La Hoya did in the past. Yeah, and you say it's similar to Ray Leonard. Leonard had that pretty boy look too in the past, but at the same time, the difference is that Ray Leonard and De La Hoya, they had personality, they had charisma a little bit, and Canelo doesn't have that charisma, and that's a problem. He doesn't have it.
At least Cotto, remember Cotto? He's similar to Cotto where he don't talk. But Cotto, I didn't even know Cotto spoke English until one day. I'm like, boom, and then come to find out he was born in Rhode Island. Canelo speak English. He don't even try. He doesn't understand the connection that he makes just by speaking English. He doesn't even try. He's just like, bro, and I
I think he speaks English. No, I caught him speaking English a few times. He knows how to speak English. It's just that he's trying to cater to his fan base. That's all by speaking Spanish. That's all he's doing.
That's the whole thing. If that's okay, but what about branching out? So imagine if he was speaking English and connecting to the audience, his brand would be even in bigger fights and have a bigger connection. It's like that's done. Like it's like he doesn't work on his brand. It's just I'm Canelo. On by it, and that's it.
I don't know why I'm giving Ike so much time, but he says, "Look, I bet on myself like Floyd Mayweather. And yeah, you got beat up. He talking about Wilder. You got beat up so badly, you never made 120 million. Well, I'll tell you what though, Wilder got beat up, but guess what though? He'll make that back he'll make that money in the Fury rematch, by the way, because he did bet on himself. He's made more money than he ever got from the zone by not taking that deal. If you add those fights together, if you got the Don Brazil fight, the Luis Ortiz fights, and the two Tyson Fury fights, he's made that money. So I don't know what the fuck you talk about, dog.
See, there's a difference between a flat rate and a co-promotion. With the DAZN deal, it was a flat rate. Take what you get. It doesn't matter what the fight makes, and go home. Be happy that you got what you got. When you co-promote a fight, you get the fighter purse, and you also get perpetual money as they rebroadcast that thing for decades. While when you're dead in your grave, and they're rebroadcasting that fight. When we see when they show Fury versus Wilder again in like 2070, Wilder will still be making money.
Yeah, exactly. So, Jalik, so let me ask you this though: how do you feel that? See, now the word from the grapevine has came out right after the lawsuit has came out is that DAZN views Oscar De La Hoya, Jorge Masvidal, and Khabib for two UFC fighters as premier opponents for Canelo Alvarez.
I can't wait. I gotta find. I know it's a way for us to find it. I gotta search some more. Is when you get public lawsuits. I forget what the law is. You can see it. Yeah. So those same documents that Athletic got. It's a way.
Yeah, they're all public record. They're all public record. The lawsuits, you can find it online right now. 24 pages.
Yeah.
Let me know how to find that because I need to read into it some more because it's very interesting. So
that's in the link.
Yeah, I want to see the public records, but that's crazy, and that's why Oscar came out playing around. See, remember I said in the chat I was saying how Eddie Hearn is a double agent.
Yeah. Speak on that one.
Bro. It's so easy. All you gotta do is use basic logic sense, right?
Yeah.
DAZN owns a portion of Matchroom USA.
Right.
DAZN also hires Eddie Hearn. So Eddie Hearn is making just as much money or maybe even more being an executive for DAZN than he is having to put on the pressure of making fights. So he still is a promoter.
Right.
How magically is it that none of his fighters want to fight Canelo out all of a sudden? Doesn't a light bulb pop in your head like maybe they're doing that on purpose? Even when Homeboy said on Monday he's going to tell everybody is whether he's going to fight Canelo. They told him to say that. It's so obvious they're devaluing Canelo on purpose, and Eddie Hearn is doing that. Why would Eddie Hearn increase Canelo's value right now? That means he has to pay more money, which affects his job as an executive. He's two people. Right. So if he's two people, then that's going to affect it. So Eddie Hearn's goal is to, of course, he has to live up to his contract. He's probably making more money as an executive than he is with Matchroom. And Matchroom, once again, is owned by Dazn, Matchroom USA. So they're purposely going behind Canelo's back. They're going to treat that boy. If he don't get the right management, bro, it's going to look ugly because they're going to treat that boy where he probably back to making holding little bit of money, like 10 compared to what he's making. Trust me.
Yeah, well, you know what? Go ahead.
Just to piggyback, there's an issue though. The issue is, and it goes back to the spat that Espinoza, the Twitter war that Espinoza and Eddie had, where he said you double dipped, where you lied and you told HBO that you weren't in a contract with Showtime. That right there.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
When Espinoza said to Eddie, when you lied and told HBO that you didn't have a contract with us, right? Basically accusing Eddie Hearn of double dipping and also being dishonest with his business partners, who are also TV execs, broadcast execs. That right there is the kiss of death here in America. Yeah. I don't know how they do business anywhere else, but it's exactly the TV execs is a very small group. Exactly. And you're saying that you double dip. And if you remember, AJ Klitschko was shown on HBO and Showtime.
Yeah,
right.
I'm sure that both executives were not happy about that.
Exactly.
No, they were not. And I was wondering why were both fights broadcast on two different networks. That's what I was trying to figure out in the United States. That made no sense to me. And I was trying to scratch my head on that one.
The overall conclusion that I'm drawing is, if DAZN does not work out, Eddie will not have a place in America to broadcast his fights. So this whole thing you're trying to cut Canelo out, you're gonna fuck yourself in the end. If you actually actively trying to do that, what you'll do is undermine DAZN's credibility in the United States, and then also take your ability to broadcast fights completely out of this country.
Yeah. Hey, look, Akeem says that. What's up? Boxlight says I hate Eddie the Snake, and Akeem says that Canelo doesn't want to pay Billy Joe Saunders the appropriate amount of money. I'm like, actually, he's getting more money he's ever made. The only argument that Billy Joe Saunders has is that the time before preparation for the fight. That's his argument. Now, I understand where he's coming from, but at the same time, Billy Joe Saunders understands, he's not he doesn't live that life as a fighter. He openly admitted himself that he's not the most disciplined fighter when it comes to, he blows up the weights in between fights. That's on him. So if he's not prepared to make the fight with Canelo, that's on him. So you can't say that he was never paid appropriate amount of money. He was given a lucrative amount of money to take the fight, but based off the amount of time to prepare for it, that's why he rejected it.
And why if you think logically, why would Eddie Hearn, who knows DAZN is in a crazy financial situation, why would he do something to benefit Canelo, which is in turn is going to make his financial situation for the company that he works for even worse?
Exactly.
You see how they came up, you see how they came on a live, I forget whose live it was, and they confirmed that Gary Russell is going to fight Devin Haney. They making fights like that, right? They making Luke Campbell because it's way less money. That's right. Why to have Canelo on your team, marketing dollars, everything costs more. They can erase that contract with him and Triple G and bring in more money. So that's what they're gonna do. It's just business. That's how it works.
Yeah, I get that on the Devin Haney and the Gary Russell, but the problem is the Ryan Garcia, because he's tied to Golden Boy, and according to the contract, is that Golden Boy. Well, actually, not the contract. The DAZN had suspended Golden Boy for posting any fights until further notice. So now that puts the Luke Campbell and Ryan Garcia fight in jeopardy. Now, one way the fight can still happen is that if there's someone willing to bid for it. You know what I mean? The DAZN can't just hold that fight up. Somebody else can bid for it. And
they can have it in the UK. It's really interesting, man. It's crazy. Because Ryan Garcia should have never re-signed, but you got fighters like Rashidi Ellis. There's so many fighters. Jojo Diaz, you can see that they're just going to leave Golden, but they're basically
going to have to leave because now their future and Sonata Estrada too, a female flyweight who's very exciting. Is like now they can't even fight now because of this whole situation. They're looking at this like, what the fuck?
It's the way they run in their company. And Virgil Ortiz, I like the guy, but hopefully he didn't re-sign with him, and hopefully his dad understands what's going on, because he gonna listen to his father. I just hope he understands what's really going on. He might feel the connection to Oscar, this, and this, but hopefully he understands what's going on, bro. Bro.
Yeah, I think this is a sinking ship. I think all those fighters are going to leave
Yes.
after this whole thing settled. They're all going to leave. It's kind of like a situation with, I know I'm bringing video games into the conversation here, but there was a esports organization called Echo Fox, which was owned by Rick Fox at that time. You know, the former basketball player Rick Fox for the Lakers. And there was a big scandal that happened at Echo Fox that involved, you know, the argument between Rick Fox and the president of the company at the time. And the argument was that Rick Fox refused to work in the environment of Echo Fox because he claims that he was yelled at by the president who was using racial slurs towards him. So that's one of the reasons why he left the company. And not only that, the company was in turmoil because there was allegations that they were not paying their players. They weren't paying anybody out. They were not honoring their contracts. And I think the president was recklessly spending money on things that he shouldn't spend the money on in the organization. He wasteful spent it on it, and they fell out because of that. So it's kind of like that situation I see here with Golden Boy. I mean, not exactly they're recklessly spending money. It's just like what it is that, like you said, I think was usually who mentioned this, who got on here, is that they did a deal behind Canelo Alvarez's back where the stipulation is that they will only get paid for fights unless Canelo fights. That's fucking bullshit.
This is going to be I don't know if there's any lawyers. Professor, he knows lawyers. This is going to be fucking interesting, especially if they had this on public trial. This is so interesting from a legal standpoint, bro. Like, it's crazy, bro. And what it makes it even crazier is the snake shit Oscar doing with Canelo. Because remember, guys, it was in 2016. Remember that Canelo had to pay money? Because remember, Canelo wasn't their Oscar wasn't the original promoter. They was word on the streets. They took him from another smaller promoter, but they end up having to pay the smaller promoter. I think it was in 2016, and Canelo had to come out of his pocket, and Oscar was out of it. So it's always been shit that's going on, and that's why for Canelo, for the sake of Canelo, if he don't understand certain things about business, and I'm sure he's learning now, but Canelo is in a situation where it be a few people that can tell him, like, bro, this is what I recommend. This is what you do. This is the lawyers type situation. And that's why we all say Al Heyman comes to mind. Of course, Al Heyman ain't going to get involved now. But remember, Al Heyman he took over Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. from, Top Rank, whatever. He ended up losing and quitting against Fonfara. But this is really interesting, bro. Like, it's really legally interesting, and I won't be surprised if Canelo won't fight into 2022.
Yeah,
and it had been 2 years since he fought, and at this age, with him gaining weight and stuff like that, that's not good for his career. Maybe it's good for his knee. I don't know if his knee having problems, but this is interesting, bro.
Yeah, he's going to lose 2 years of his prime, and while he's young, while he's somewhat fresh, as to your point, he does gain weight. He gains weight after fights. Now, I mean, he doesn't get fat, but if he's not fighting, he may grossly get out of shape. It'd be hard for him to make weight for fights, Yeah. So, man, this is gonna be bad, man. I know, and a lot of people are gonna looking at this and saying, "Yeah, you guys are what you pray for the zone's downfall, and you got." No, that's not the case. It's just that we've been arguing for a long time now that this business model they had just didn't work.
Yeah,
it never worked from the beginning.
Bro, like I said, the zone had the best. The zone fights was crazy. And the zone be putting on the female fights, bro. The zone is serious, bro. Like,
yeah, that's speaking of that, those female fights. I know some of those, half of those fights most of those fights were hosted by Hearn, so they'll be okay there. So, I mean, it depends where Eddie Hearn's. He's got to do some network shopping. I want to know who's going to pick him up. I don't know. I mean, I thought Showtime may pick him up. I know they had a dispute over there a while back. But
knows it look like he takes stuff personal. He don't even take jokes and stuff. See another thing that just kind of look forward to doing it is ran differently, but it's the relationship between ESPN and Top Rank. So with them, I believe that they're the exclusive promoter.
Yeah, they are.
Top Rank exclusive promoter. I don't think that's a great idea, because look at this situation. Imagine if Canelo comes over there. Canelo ain't gonna sign with Top Rank just to have him on there. So it will benefit ESPN to allow another promoter to come on without Top Rank being involved, or imagine
Yeah, I mean,
over there.
ideal, but they signed that's true. That would be ideal, but the problem is they signed the exclusive agreement, and now, I mean, only option for Canelo is that he's going to have to sign with Showtime or Fox. That's the only options he got.
And that's tied with PBC. So
Yeah,
you
that's
don't
how
sign with Al Heyman. So it's either sign with Al Heyman or sign. It's almost monopolized now. Top Rank. It's like Top Rank or there, Bob Arum or Al Heyman now. So
yeah.
that's kind of like not having the third man is
Well, it's kind of like similar to how the UK market is because you only have two promoters there technically. I mean, you have
yeah.
Eddie Hearn, who's the big time over there, and then you have Frank Warren, who's still hanging on over there, and then you have low level promoters like Mick Hennessy, who can't really compete with those two guys.
True.
But other than that, yeah, that's how it is over there. Same thing over here now. So that's what it's gonna. That's how it's gonna end up. So yeah, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and shut this down because I gotta get going, man. So I'm glad to have you guys on earlier today. So shout out to you guys, Jalik, Fight Doctor, and Smoke. Who was
I didn't even see him. Yeah.
yeah. But do you have any last words before we close out, guys?
Nah, man, just thanks for having me on, bro. This is gonna be interesting. You know, hopefully they can get it resolved quick, but it's gonna be in court probably for a whole year or so.
Yeah, I predict maybe a year if they don't sell it out quickly. But yeah, good point there, man.
That's fight.
Yeah. Hey, Fight Doctor, any last words, man?
Yeah, I'm just curious to see how this all plays out. Grab your popcorn, gents. Probably going to be, you know, this is probably going to be something akin to Mike Tyson back in the early '90s, late '80s with Robin Givens.
Oh yeah, and let's not forget about that one. Or let's not forget about the Tim Witherspoon and Don King situation. You know how that situation dragged out for a while.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I know Smoke just popped in real quickly, but I'm gonna give him the last words. Hey, Smoke, I'm about to end this side stream. Do you have any last words, bud?
Oh man, peace. Thanks for having me on. I'm glad I finally caught one of your lives. Yeah, interesting subject, and I know it's immature, but yeah, I told you so, and apparently other people on the panel did too.
Yeah, I mean we had to because we got a lot of heat for this 2 years ago. We got a lot of heat, and we're only trying to have a rational conversation about it. And,
yeah, this is all. This is all Al's and Wilder's fault, right? You know that it's their responsibility to save the zone, right?
Yeah, it was their responsibility, and Wilder should have still took the deal regardless, even though there were no, even though the zone could have answered critical financial questions to pertain to the deal, and they still expect him to sign on to it anyway. And in actuality, he wasn't going to get that money. So, wow. Okay, whatever. But thanks for having me. I have you on, man. So shout out to the chat, Lord Flanneroy, as always, man. Key, I know you've been trolling a lot, man, but it's all cool. We're still cool, brother. Thanks for being in the chat. Box Life, Joe Host, some others in here, and Tarvis, long time no here. Thanks for having you on, Hamed, Fight Doctor. I always have you on, man, and also have YG, who was in the chat for a moment, and Tommy Temper, and Intangible was here for a moment too. So other than that, we're out. Peace.